Hey guys, welcome back to another Dragonheir Silent Gods video. Today we're going to be having a look at the Grave of Rot dungeon. So this is the third dungeon that you'll unlock throughout your story. In the end game, it is the dungeon that you'll be able to farm both stun gear from and also the set that gives you increased attack to your whole team, as well as giving you stats like accuracy, spell haste, and also resistance. So it is an incredibly valuable dungeon and one that you do need to farm quite a fair bit as well. It's probably the second most important gear dungeon in the game. So if we first start by just having a look at the skills, what the boss actually does, and then we'll go into breaking down a team that you can use throughout all of the stages of Grave of Rot, and obviously eventually end up on stage 9 able to farm as much legendary gear as possible. So the boss is called the Colossal Scavenger. So its basic attack, its first attack is it deals poison damage to all enemies and inflicts healing prohibition and 5 stacks of poison for 30 seconds. Obviously both of those are quite nasty debuffs, you'll receive quite a lot of damage from the poison, but the healing prohibition is incredibly annoying because obviously you're not able to heal through it. Then the next attack it does is it deals poison damage to enemies within range and inflicts recharging speed penalty. Obviously, this makes it incredibly awkward to actually tune your team for the boss, because your ultimate energy is not going to recharge anywhere near as fast on certain heroes, and it just throws everything off a little bit. Next up, it devours the current target and chews them for 4 seconds, dealing poison damage every second and restoring HP equal to 600% of the damage dealt. Obviously, you do want somebody who's incredibly tanky to take this, because the more defense they've got, the less damage it's going to do and the less the boss is going to heal. Alternatively, you can use a hero in this team who has heal prohibition themselves so that the boss can't heal from this attack. Obviously, as well as that, every time the boss basic attacks, it has a 50% chance to inflict poison on the target, and for each existing debuff on the target, the damage dealt is increased by 5%. Lastly, it is immune to all control effects, so you're not able to control this boss as with all of the dungeon bosses. So one of the key things as well to remember when you're fighting this boss is the accuracy requirements are needed. So this boss on stage 9 has 200 resistance, so you will need 220 accuracy at the highest level to make sure you're having a high chance of landing your debuffs. Obviously do bear this in mind, with each stage you are facing it will be lower. So if we jump in and look at the team that I'm going to be showcasing today, it is relatively accessible. There are no legendary heroes involved. As well as that, I am using 2 rares who everybody should be able to pick up. The 3 epics I'm using, they are relatively interchangeable. Obviously they are particularly strong here and in most areas of the game, but over time I think people obviously will be able to pick up hopefully all of them. If not, they'll be able to change them out for certain other heroes. So first of all, I've got Furbath as the tank here. So he's built with a lot of defense because of his healing. So obviously he's going to be taking the attack from the boss that devours him. As well as that, I've obviously got him built with accuracy for his attack penalty, and he's also using the Crown of the Unclean artifact for defense down. Then I've got Adolphus, so because of the heal penalty that's being inflicted by the boss, I want to bring in somebody who can shield, because it just negates the need to heal. Obviously, instead of healing, you're shielding your heroes and obviously stopping incoming damage. Then we've got the rare Enna. So Enna is able to remove 1 debuff every 19, obviously depending on your skill haste, around 19 to 20 seconds. This is incredibly useful because of the amount of debuffs the boss is putting out on you. So I do normally use different healers in this, but for the case of showcasing this run, I did want to use Anna the Rare, because everybody will be able to get her. Then I'm using, as well as that, Vikuk, so he is incredibly strong as a cleanser. His ultimate skill will hit everybody and dispel 2 debuffs from them. And obviously the key to this is making sure that his complete recharge is under 18 seconds, so that you can tune him to go just after the boss inflicts heal penalty and poisons, and hopefully cleanse both of those off of everybody in your team. So lastly, as my DPS, I'm using Sigrid. This is because she deals incredibly strong damage, but also because she does have the chance to place heal reduction on her heal prohibition on her battle skill. And she also helps with the heal prohibition on her ultimate skill as well as attack penalty. This just obviously helps me to survive a little bit longer, just to ease the pressure on the healers and the cleansers, as well as doing obviously incredibly strong damage, especially for a rare hero. Everybody should be investing in their Sigrid. She's far too good for being a rare. She should be arguably a legendary. Well, it definitely should be a legendary. But it is what it is. She's a rare and we'll accept that. So, in terms of this run, on my skill timing, as you can see, I've got Vikuk set to just go every 18 seconds with his ultimate skill, and that is timed to go just after the boss's skill that places the heal, prohibition, and the poisons. So every time they go out, they will just be cleansed straight off. And as for the rest of the team, they are just set to go default, so they're doing whatever they want. So if we have a look at the run, I'll break down this as it plays out. It isn't the fastest run, it is relatively long, but obviously I did want to make sure I was using a team that was accessible for most players. Obviously there are a few epics in here that you will have to get lucky to get, as I mentioned, but in the long run they are replaceable as well. You just have to try things out with other tanks, for example, instead of Furbath, and potentially a stronger healer instead of a second cleanser if you're replacing Adolphus, because you do need to make sure that you're topping your team up between these ultimate hits. So obviously in an ideal world as well, I would be tuning Enna to instantly remove the recharge speed penalty, but I just haven't got enough spell haste on her, and I'll be honest, I threw her into this just to show that she could make a big difference and impact the run. So as you can see here, this is when the Furbath has been eaten by the boss, and heal prohibition is on the target, so he's not getting healing. As well as that, my Furbath doesn't take a huge amount of damage from that skill, so it's not dealing a massive amount of damage for him to heal with anyway. So I'll jump out and let you guys watch the rest of this run, and then we'll talk about some of the kind of potential alternatives for each of these heroes that you could bring in. And there we go. Obviously, as I say, this is not the fastest run at all. So 4 minutes 35, you can make this significantly faster. If you're able to survive, you can get rid of one of the supports. For example, you could get rid of one of your cleansers and just run an extra damage dealer instead. Obviously, this is all gear dependent. In terms of obviously alternatives that you could use, I'm not going to mention anybody to replace Sigrid because she's just so accessible for everybody. But if we have a look at some of the supports that you could bring in terms of legendaries, obviously there is loads of cleansers who are able to come into these roles, or shielders as well. So, I mean, Jillian is one to mention. Ogok can do it very well. Rhaetar is an incredibly good cleanser. There are so many legendary options. But in terms of the epics who you could bring in some raw healing by replacing one of your cleansers with, for example, Sifris. You could use Hexandra instead as well as a rare champion. In terms of shields, you've got, I don't actually know how to pronounce this hero's name. I'm going to guess it's something like Ihu Cattle. I don't know. Nathaniel as well is obviously a good option. Catherine you can use to block the debuffs before they actually go on your team. There are great options that you can bring into this team, that's for sure. Thea you could use for her debuff immunity. Obviously this does only affect ranged heroes, so your tank would still take the debuffs. But there are many ways to build around this and to obviously build a team that will be able to get you through stages 1 to 9 if you don't have these exact heroes. So as a kind of focal point, look at the roles they're serving rather than the heroes that I'm actually using. I did try to use as many non-legendary, as many accessible heroes as I could, but unfortunately my XP potions just don't spread far enough to build all of the epics and all of the rares available in the game. So I have to do the best I can. Maybe in obviously future videos, as I do get more resources, I will be able to cover more teams. But for now, that is all. So please, if you are enjoying the content I'm putting out, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next video.